Hello, Red Cube listeners. You're very welcome to the latest episode of the Red Cube podcast that covers all things people and culture. We are delighted to be joined by the CPO of Distilled, Laura Doyle. Laura, you are very welcome.
Hey, Cathal, thanks a million.
How are you keeping, Laura?
Good, yeah, good. It's a bit wet out there now today, but other than that, I'm keeping well, thank you.
It's lashing rain out there, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's horrible.
It's lashing rain. Now, where it wasn't raining is in Venice a couple of weeks ago, where Distilled were announced as the best workplace in Europe. Congratulations.
Thanks a million, yeah. It was slightly different over there. Sun was shining. We were looking for shade as opposed to umbrellas.
Yeah, typical Irish, isn't it? When the sun shines, we kind of look for the shade, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
there's
listen,
no keeping us happy.
Congratulations to
Thank you.
that achievement, best workplace in Europe, which is fantastic. I suppose by way of introduction, Laura, for the listeners, you might give everyone a sense as to who Distilled are and what.
Yeah. So basically, I'm sure you're aware of the brands Daft.ie, DoneDeal.ie, and Adverts.ie. Essentially, Distilled is the parent company. Distilled is the company that employs everybody that works across the three brands, and people will work across multiple brands as well. So put together, Daft, DoneDeal and Adverts, and the company that glues it all together is basically Distilled.
Fantastic. And one of the people that glue it all together as well, Laura, is yourself, currently CPO. What about your career to date? How does that look?
So basically, I'm in Distilled about 7 years. I joined Daft. I thought I was taking a nice, easy job. I joined as a HR business partner. The role I'd been in prior to that was more senior. I decided I was just going to, go into a business partner role, take a bit of a step back and kind of, maybe look at work-life balance, that kind of thing. But I got into the role in Daft, and Daft very quickly became Daft, Adverts and DoneDeal. There was a huge challenge there. I love a great challenge. So yeah, keeping me in my nice role in Daft didn't last very long. And I've been with Distilled kind of on the journey of, becoming a single company. We had 3 different companies, 3 different cultures, 3 different ways of working, 5 different physical locations. Even if you think of the practicalities of compensation and benefits, 3 companies paid completely different, benchmarked completely different, performance management was completely different, annual leave, benefits, and they were probably the easier things to change. But I think bringing 3 cultures together as one was probably, the biggest challenge of them all.
Wow, Laura, and so not an easy task to bring 3 cultures together as one, and of course the journey is ongoing, right? But could you give people a sense as to, I don't know, where did you even start on that journey of 3 to 1 and some of the key moments even?
I think, I suppose like we had 3 of every department, if you can imagine. So I think the first part of it was looking at organization structures. Basically, the first step, I suppose, Eamon, our CEO, took was to put a leadership team in place. So to put a team of people in place who were going to live and breathe this and figure it all out. So that was probably the first and the most pivotal, I think, step to take in the journey to get there. So I think we started off, there was Eamon, there was myself, we had a CFO, and we had somebody looking at strategy as well. Obviously that leadership team has evolved over time, but myself and Eamon have been kind of on it from the start to where we've got to today.
So having a good leadership team in place that's committed to the work almost that needs to be done.
And for me, I think what was key was, the relationship with Eamon, or the relationship between HR and the CEO, because I think if there isn't buy-in from the CEO on the importance of the HR function, I think anyone will tell you, you may as well bang your head off a wall. It's too difficult. And it has to be the number one priority, of the business to get there.
And I've seen that connection in action between yourself and Eamon, and kind of how you work through different problems and data and work towards solutions. For the HR people in listening, Laura, any key things you feel the CEO needs to hear from HR to bring them on that journey? Is it data? Is there something else that they need, do you feel?
I think it's absolutely data. But in addition to data, it can be, that sense from the HR person of where things are. I mean, myself, I've over 25 years HR experience. There won't always be data to back up my sense of things. And it's that trust that, I've been around long enough to know and to recognize different things. And, sometimes, HR will bring one skill set, a CEO will bring another skill set, and rather than one being better than the other, they actually complement each other, and they should complement each other. And it's really to work with the strengths, I think, of both parties.
I know, Laura, it's been a long journey, right? And three into one. It sounds like a song, three becomes one. Is that the Spice Girls? I think it was.
It is actually, yeah, jeepers.
There we go. Bit of pop trivia.
Don't sing, Cathal, don't sing.
Don't worry, I won't sing. We're okay. So I know there's a lot behind that. So different compensation structures and offerings, and everything that goes with that. Obviously, the three cultures, the different leadership, things like that. Was there ever a moment where you felt, what, I'm not sure we'll get this one over the line, or we'll figure this particular piece out?
Plenty of moments, Cathal. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like we ran engagement surveys where the comments, I would read the comments and it was just being like knocked over. We would get Glassdoor reviews. I was just looking at some of them back in 2016, 2017 yesterday for a presentation that I'm pulling together. And I remember the impact of each and every one of those reviews. You'd get it, you'd open it, and you'd be like, what I'm doing isn't working. Why are people still thinking this? Do they not realize we've done X, Y, Z? So yeah, it was absolutely tough. We would have a monthly company meeting. We call it a huddle. Some people call it an all hands. And we have anonymous questions and answers in there. And I can remember 2016, 2017, some of the questions we had to answer. We committed to answering any question unless it was, overly negative or inappropriate. So we answered some really, really tough questions. But we said we would do it, and we committed to transparency. So we did it. And they were tough days. They were days where you were thinking, are we ever going to turn this around? Is it ever going to work? But, looking back on it now, I learned so much from all of that. And I think, we persevered through it. There was days where it really got to me. There was days where it got to the team. There was days where it got to Eamon. But, when it might get to me one day, it mightn't get to Eamon. He picked me up and vice versa. There was lots of chocolate involved as well. And cups of tea and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, definitely it wasn't plain sailing.
Of course, yeah. No, what I loved about that, Laura, is the sense of vulnerability that you had to show as part of the leadership team. It's not easy. Put yourself in front of people and say, let's go through the questions.
Yeah.
Not an easy place to be, so that was a great sense of vulnerability. We nearly got through the chat, Laura, without mentioning COVID, but here I go. So right, the last couple of years or more, even COVID and all the challenges that threw up for us, right, within workplaces. Any sense of sort of key learnings or lessons that you or Distilled have taken away from that COVID period in terms of how you worked?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I don't know if there's many places that would say it, but I actually think COVID has helped Distilled go from good to great. Bizarrely enough, even though it was one of the most challenging times in the business. And the reason I would say that was, we went through it together. Very early on in COVID, our CEO made a commitment to employees to protect, no matter what the future of COVID brought, that Distilled's aim was to protect the jobs of its employees and the businesses of its customers. We made that commitment to employees. We did not know what COVID was going to bring. This was probably maybe a month or 2 months into working from home. So making that commitment and everyone in Distilled kind of pulling together to get through it, I think was massive for Distilled. Even in employees, in Distilled, we all took a pay cut. There was different levels, kind of leadership team would have been the biggest pay cut, and then through the business. 2 months after taking the pay cut, we realized that actually it was going, business would be okay. It was 2 or 3 months into it, and we gave every employee back the money, that had come out of the pay cut. And I think that was something that employees really, really appreciated. It was tough for our employees. I was lucky, I had a spare room in my house. I could convert it into an office. Not everybody was the same, but we looked after employees, employee by employee, because no two situations were the same. We did a lot around well-being, mental health, physical health, just to try and boost her morale and to help employees and their families actually, through it. We showed flexibility. I mean, we were all at home, suddenly you're homeschooling. I don't know about you, but I wasn't a natural when it came to homeschooling, and I wouldn't like to do it again. But, we realized that was tough for employees as well. So gave them, the flexibility that they needed around that as well. And then, just sent out pick-me-ups and, different perks when we could. And we were just open, transparent, and kept people informed as to, where the business was, what was going on, what the future held.
How did Eamon make that promise? Is that at one of the all hands, or?
Yeah, it was at one of the company and all hands, because I think what it was there was just so much uncertainty. If you remember, we all left the office. I thought I was packing up my desk for 2 weeks. Thought I'd be back in. Then 2 weeks came, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then we realized, okay, this is going to go on. And he always had a good handle on COVID, because he would follow a lot kind of what was going on in other countries. So, we discussed it as a leadership team, and, we decided at that point what our priority was. We've an amazing set of employees who've always, given 110%. And I guess we just wanted to take that worry away from employees, because, a lot of employees, their other halves were affected by this, some losing their jobs, some, on the COVID payment, different things. So we just wanted to put some stability for our employees in a very unstable environment. So for him, I think it felt like a very natural thing to do. And I don't think even when he made the decision, he realized kind of the impact and how well received it would be by, every employee in Distilled, like myself included.
It's amazing, Laura. And there's lots of there's lots of fascination post-COVID about the future way of working, and less on the now way of working, right? Because we're working now, right? We can't wait for the future. And would you give people a sense, Laura, as to how Distilled, like, how are you choosing to work now?
Okay, so at the moment, I suppose hybrid would describe the way we're working at the moment, but in reality, probably 90% of our employees are working from home. So we have an office in Dublin city centre, and we have one in Wexford. Both offices have fully reopened. However, if employees want to continue working from home, they can. If they want to go into the office, they can. they can make their own decision on that. They don't need approval from their manager for either option. You know, for example, this week, I think I was due into work. I said I'd go into the office on Tuesday. Just myself, wanted to get out of the house. Then I looked at my calendar. I realized I had 4 hours of meeting. So I said, sure, what's the point in traveling to sit in another meeting room? So I said, I'll work from home. So everyone just makes up their own mind. And if you want to go in, the office is there. If you want to work from home, work from home. We do have days, like we do a monthly breakfast in each office. And we do encourage employees to go into the office on that day, not to work, but to connect with their colleagues, and to connect with each other. Like, I know when we started doing that, you know, I was hearing feedback like, when I go into the office, I get nothing done, because I'm just chatting all day, and then I go home and I have all this work to do. So what we said to employees is, look, if you're going into the office on that day, deprioritize your work and prioritize making connections. If you spend the day talking to different colleagues about different things, that's absolutely fine, because they're the kind of water cooler moments, you know, that we're missing. Like, we'd also do a monthly hike as well. So we have one in each location. It's a half day, and again, we encourage all employees to go to those. So, you know, and it's not like they have to make up work missing. The monthly hike is the work that, you know, that morning or the afternoon. You know, we really try our best to stay connected. You know, we've had one full company day this year. We've another one now coming up in October, where everyone's kind of getting together off site. Managers have budgets for team meetups, so, you know, we'd encourage them to do them whenever possible. But look, if it doesn't suit an employee to go along, or, you know, the distance is too far, that's fine as well. It's just, you know, if you can make it and you can go, you know, it's a really good thing for, you know, we encourage it, I suppose. And then just in relation to working very early on, kind of post-COVID, we said what we were trying to do was equality for those working from home and those in the office. So if you're in the office, you still work like you're working at home. You know, it's one laptop per person, one screen per person, so that if there are a few people in the office, that you don't feel as somebody from home that you're missing out, or that you're not part of the conversation or anything like that. And that's worked really well for us, because kind of the first 2 or 3 weeks after reopening the office, we got lots of feedback, you know, from people saying, well, I couldn't hear, you know, I felt out of it. So we very quickly said, look, we just want equality of experience, whether you're working from home or working in the office.
That's really interesting. I'm going to delve into that in a second, Laura. And I know it feels natural for yourselves in terms of how you're currently working. Was there much discussion about how this is going to be? Did it just naturally come out of COVID? How did that kind of play out?
Kind of towards, you know, when we started seeing light at the end of COVID, you know, obviously I had, you know, employees asking us what's going to happen. Will we all have to go into the office? You know, lots of questions, as I'm sure most companies had. So we did the usual, sent out a survey, got information. I think we needed some clarification on some points, sent out a second survey, and it was really clear from the surveys that, you know, around 90% of our employees wanted to keep working from home. But there was still the 10%, you know, who didn't have a good setup at home, or who just wanted to be in the office and get out of the house and go to work. So what we said was, you know, we said we'll go into, you know, the remote working, or the hybrid model, I should say, where you can stay at home if you want, or go into the office as you want, kind of as a 6-month trial. I think when we say a trial, the trial was to make any improvements we needed to make it work, not that we were going to reverse it and say, oh, everyone has to come into the office. So during that 6 months, we gathered, you know, I think it was weekly feedback from people to see, you know, what can we improve? You know, what pain points did you notice? Because what might seem like a small thing for us, you know, is a big thing for someone else. Like, for example, you know, people were coming into the office, we only had one monitor, you know, on each desk, and they were used to having 2 monitors and their laptops at home. So look, let's equip the desks, like let's make this easy for people if they do want to go into the office. So we got lots of feedback and acted, on anything that we could act on.
And that equality of experience, whether you're in the office, whether you're at home, is certainly a thing. And I think it's great that that intel is coming back to you. It's being said. Is that just the trust facilitates that to come back to you? Because there's sometimes these things go unsaid as well. Or how is that sort of feedback made its way back to you, Laura?
I suppose we've got loads of different feedback channels. Like we do 3 engagement surveys with our employees every year. And look, you get great feedback, in relation to specific questions, but you get great comments as well. We'll send out pulse surveys on different things throughout the year. So there would have been plenty of pulse surveys, on the ways of working for Distilled. So we would have got very specific feedback there. We have a people champs network. So that's kind of people who would champion, our culture, our vision, our values. We will get feedback from them. We have a group called the Distillers who look after kind of organizing, social connection, fun things for Distilled. They would give us feedback as well. And every manager does a one-to-one, with everyone in their team. So we would get the feedback from managers, and, we would have done training with managers as well to talk to them about, we want this to work, but we need the feedback. We need you to be asking the questions. And then the managers would come back to us, with feedback. And look, in addition to that, I'd have messages from employees saying, look, I noticed this, and members of my team would as well. So I think it's just the communication channels are there. We asked for the feedback and we got it. And the great thing about that is we were able to act on it. I'm not saying everything's 100% perfect. There's always things that we need to keep doing and different things that will pose challenges, but we continue to work on it.
There's lots of investment in the listening practices that are there.
Yeah.
One of the things we're hearing, Laura, from many organizations who are operating in a hybrid setting is that they're struggling to figure out the connection piece, or maybe they're doing things but people aren't taking, getting involved or things like that. Any tips for people as to what you believe are the key components if you're trying to drive that connection?
I think it has to be from the top down, and I think the leaders in the business have to lead by example. I mean, there's absolutely no sense in us saying there's go into the office for the monthly breakfast. Don't worry about your workload. If the leadership team are all working from home, sending multiple emails and messages, during that time, you absolutely have to, encourage it and lead by example. You have to give people the space to participate. So like if you're putting a hike out there, or a monthly breakfast out there, you have to encourage your team to go. No matter how busy they are, this is really important. Go along, make the time, because plenty of times I've asked people just to go, and afterwards they've said to me, thanks for encouraging me to go. I know I was up to my eyes, but I'm so glad that I went. So it's, doing that. And I think, I'm guilty of it myself. We all get into our comfort zones at home, and you look out the window, it's wet or it's cold. I know I'll just leave it for today. But it's really, encouraging it. And I think the same thing doesn't suit everybody. Like even I mentioned there, we're doing hikes, where, we had sometimes participation is amazing. Sometimes it's not amazing. We talk to our employees, and some of the feedback that we got is, look, not everyone likes to hike. The outdoors isn't for everyone. So now our group called the Distillers and our people champs are getting some ideas from employees about other things that they would like to do to keep that connection. I think the full company meetups, we've had one, we have a second one coming up. The first one was just a massive success. I mean, the goodwill from everybody and the sense of being together was, I just couldn't describe it. I didn't kind of expect it to be, half as great as it was. And I think just, working with your management team, I mean, this is something that we got from Great Places to Work, very early on in our journey is, working with, our managers and making sure they realize the importance of this, and that they're ensuring that their teams, stay connected as teams, but also connected to other teams, and then the wider Distilled as well. Because we can all think of times in our career where maybe when you weren't happy in a job, and you might go for a night out with your colleagues, and then you'll go into work the next day and think, oh God, I actually love working here. What am I thinking about moving for? It's amazing, that power that has, and just having, a laugh and not talking about something work, it has a big impact on people. So I think it's really important to encourage it, lead by example, and give people the time and space, to engage in whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's a great way of connecting and getting to know people, not talking about, just actually getting to know who they are, what their interests are. And so I know the monthly hike is, so I suppose for people, you might see the distillers on Hout Mountain or Hout Hill or various places like that, have to say hello. But it's great as well that the feedback is coming in, that maybe we need to try some different things as well, to encourage that connection, which is great. In terms of onboarding new talent, Laura, into a sort of a hybrid model, if you like, is there any changes you've had to make from the traditional way of onboarding new talent?
Yeah, there's probably a few, and funny, kind of when everywhere reopened, we had originally scheduled our first onboarding to happen in person, and then we actually switched it. No, let's leave it remote, because we just had different, I think we had one person in a different location who couldn't make it to the office, and we just thought it would be a really bad experience for that person. We haven't changed it massively. It's still, the same kind of, introduction from the CEO and myself day one. Then each of the, members of the leadership team would do a presentation into their areas. We've group exercises that we get people to do. That's still, we probably had to, jig that around a little bit so it could be done remotely. The role of the buddy has probably changed a little bit, and we have to be more conscious of telling people about everything that's going on in Distilled, because I think previously, if you're sitting in the office, you'd hear about this or that or the other, whereas now, we've had to, I'd say, improve our documented onboarding pack, so that people are getting every piece of information that they need. And probably instead of, there being, where people go into the kitchen and have a coffee and maybe meet their colleagues, what we're doing now is just arranging meetups, and just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there with different people across the business. And we do get them to go into the office, as well, so that they can see the physical office, so that they know what people are talking about, or, when they hear about the office, that they've actually been there, but they're under no, they're under no requirement, to go in after that. I know I've recently had a new hire into the HR team. That person is based in Galway, and kind of as part of the recruitment process, I said, look, I'd like you to come to the office once every quarter, just so that the team can work together for, a day. And that was absolutely, no issue or no problem, but just to spell it out first so that the expectation is clear.
Brilliant. And when you've been on a journey like you've been on in Distilled, right, inevitably you end up with lots of practices, right, like lots of ways of doing things and people practices. This is a tough one, Laura, but is there any practice you feel you couldn't do without in terms of the Distilled culture?
Is there any practice we couldn't do without? I wouldn't allow, so I said we do 3 engagement surveys a year. So we do Great Places to Work, and then we do another one twice a year. And the surveys absolutely complement each other. And I absolutely would not, for any money in the world, let anyone take away my engagement surveys, because I think they've been key and core to us getting from where we were then to where we are now, by listening to the feedback, the good and the bad. Some of it, first time you hear it, you get defensive. then you start, listening to it with open ears and properly. And like the key things that we've implemented in Distilled have all been off the back of feedback from employees.
And one of the things I hear from many companies, Laura, is how impressed they are of how Distilled give the outside world, if you like, outside talent, a sneak preview or a look inside the Distilled culture. So if anyone is interested, you check out Distilled on LinkedIn and you'll see the postings that you do and things like that. How do you structure that piece? Because I think you're really good at just giving that outside world that inside look at Distilled culture.
We haven't always been good at it. And I think one of the things, when Daft, DoneDeal and Adverts came together as one culture, we had to find out what our culture was, like what is Distilled. So we did an employee value proposition. We got a group of employees together, hired an external company, and we basically for 2 days solid, that group of employees who were completely diverse group of employees. So there was great representation across the business. Nobody from the leadership team, nobody from HR, discussed what they loved about Distilled, what made Distilled just say unique to them. So if they got a phone call in the morning from Google, Workday, whoever, why they would say no and stay at Distilled over that. So, from that EVP, we kind of, okay, this is our identity. And then we kind of looked at our brand, if you like, that we had in place then, and it didn't represent, what had come out of that and our employees feeling. So look, we did a complete rebrand, new website, we redid the offices, all the swag and all of that, but we kind of felt in conjunction with that, we needed to sell that to people who were looking for a job, or just so that people know what it's like to work in Distilled. Because I'm CPO, I'll say to you, I think there's something unique there, but our employees genuinely feel it. And we have people now who seek us out, who are asking us, are there any open roles? People know who we are. We get new followers every single week. So it's not that we're showing anything we're not doing. We're just showing what we're doing and giving it a bit of an insight into it, because we know it's special, we know it's unique, and we just wanted to share that kind of with other people. And it helps with attracting new talent, but it also gives our current employees a great sense of pride, because the number of people that have said to me, oh, my friend saw this post and she wants to know, is there a job there, or is this really what happened, or are you making it up for social media? And we're like, no, this is what it is. And it's somebody in my team, Linda, who would look after all of the social media postings, and she just does an amazing job at it. So she owned the EVP, she owned the rebrand, and she owns kind of this and works at it with other people across the business. And I think it's just, we just wanted to give people an insight into our culture, because I think we've gone on this journey, where, we had to build it up, we had to get there, and we, a good few of us have been there since the start. We're just so happy to have gotten it to where it is now. And we want to share that.
That's great when talent is seeking you out, right? We're not photoshopping distillers onto the top of a hill. It's actually happening, right?
Yeah.
But that's a wonderful thing when you're hearing that, and talent are seeking out based on what they've seen. And I remember a few years ago in Distilled, we were a little shy to sell ourselves and
absolutely,
talk actually the good things we were doing. And look, it's great to see that we're doing that. Lots of great insights there, Laura. Maybe a sort of a rapid fire question round, just 2 quick questions for you. Are you a Netflix or a Disney Plus or a TV person? I know there's lots of platforms out there. I probably missed loads.
Say Netflix when I get time, but there isn't a lot of that.
Any particular Netflix show that you've liked, or?
Gosh, I'm trying to think now what was the last few things. I started watching one called Mo yesterday, but I'm not even through the first episode. A friend of mine recommended it. Selling on Sunset, of course, I had to watch that. Being Daft and all that,
Of course, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're selling Sunset. Is it the OC now? It was.
Oh, the OC, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to check that out.
Absolutely.
And Laura, any favorite movies?
Top Gun is my absolute favorite movie of all time. It's very shamefully, Cathal.
Really, the first one or the latest one?
Oh, the first one, definitely. But I did go to the latest one and I did enjoy it. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
I haven't seen it. It's good though, is it?
Yeah, it's still in the cinema, so you still have time.
The first movie has stood the test of time, hasn't it? It's great.
Yeah, I love it. I'd still now, if I was flicking around and it was on, I'd sit down and watch it. Much to my husband's dismay, he's like, not again.
Here we go again. More time.
Yeah.
Great. Laura, really appreciate you joining us. I just want to congratulate you on the journey that you and everyone in Distilled has been on over the last number of years. It's been a pleasure to watch how you listen to the data and kind of move then into action from data. Of course, congratulations on recently being announced as a best workplace in Europe. And I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you, Carl. And look, great places to work have been on that journey with us as well. And, this time it was funny, normally when we'd get the feedback from yourselves, we'd sit down and there was plenty of feedback. And I remember this year when we got the results, you went through them with us. We're like, right, so what action? And you said, well, there isn't a lot that I can say with these results, but to go from that to full on, conversations a good few years back, hopefully we can sustain it. And that's kind of what we're really working hard on at the moment, protecting that culture with, everyone's just behind it.
Thanks, Laura. We appreciate your partnership.
No problem. Thanks a million, Carl.
Red Cube listeners, thank you very much for joining us today. Please subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already done so, and of course leave us a review and tell us what